reason for that is Tasmania is predominantly an insect-free zone or a virus-free zone. We have very strong biosecurity here in Tasmania, and as a result we are able to grow a lot of heritage plants, what they call a heritage or heirloom plants. We do have some hybrids. However, Tasmania has a law, we do not have genetically modified crops. As a result, the American company Monsanto are not very impressed with Tasmania as an island state, because not having genetically modified crops means we don't have to buy seeds every 12 months. Also, Monsanto don't like us because we don't use Roundup herbicides. We don't use insecticides. We do a lot of companion farming here in Tassie. And the companion farmings get rid of the native pests or insects, stop a lot of the viruses. You'll notice in a lot of our vineyards, unlike the Hunter Valley or South Australia, we don't have roses on the end of our vines because we don't have black rot or the mildew. It's not here. So therefore we don't need those types of things. So basically the whole of the island can be classed as organic without an organic label. So it's very, very healthy. We have some of the cleanest water in Australia, and we have the cleanest air in Australia here in Tasmania, because our air actually comes from the Indian Ocean as well as Antarctica. So we breathe it in and then send it on to New Zealand, or we breathe it in and send it on to New South Wales or South Australia, Victoria, depending on which way the wind's blowing. In the winter months we give it to Victoria, and in the summer months, because the weather patterns change, we send it over to the southern island of New Zealand. So we like to breathe deep. Sharing is caring. Now, we've covered sort of agriculture and horticulture and aquaculture. Our second biggest income for Tasmania is minerals and resources. A lot of people, when you say minerals and resources, would automatically go to trees, timber, but in actual fact, it's actually gold, iron ore, bauxite for aluminium, lithium, zinc, copper, brass. I mentioned gold, silver, and bronze. We have a lot of minerals. These are all on the west coast, and we have a lot of environmentally sound mining practices going on the west coast, because we only have one refinery left in Tasmania, and it is 99% pollution free, and that's the one located in Hobart. All the other mines, all their produce, all that ore that they produce, must go overseas to Melbourne or Adelaide or to Asia for processing. We do not process that ore here because we do not want to pollute our environment. So minerals are a big part, and then of course the timber. We sell a lot of our Tassie oak overseas to turn into furniture. So we have great production there. Some nice Angus over there. So we also produce in Hobart at New Norfolk. We have North Skog, and North Skog produce all the newspaper paper for Australia. So if you're reading a newspaper anywhere in Australia, that paper came from Hobart. So it's quite interesting that we produce that here. Now, having said that, 52% of the island is still forested with traditional forests. We're having trees that are 4,500 years old, the old Huon pines over on the west coast, and those forested areas are made up of UNESCO World Heritage listed national parks, state national parks, state forest, private wilderness or protection areas for native flora and fauna, as well as plantation timbers. So well-managed plantations are doing really, really well. Look at the spring lambs that's all sitting around doing nothing. Oh, I say, it does look a bit wet out here, doesn't it? Now, we're just going to come over the hill here. Now, you may have been noticing a lot of fire damage through the vegetation here. This is where we head off into native flora and fauna, away from primary production. And in our native flora and fauna, as I say, we are the fourth most bushfire prone area in Australia. And unfortunately that came about because we didn't listen to the practices or heed the practices of the original inhabitants. Now, the indigenous population here in Tasmania, on arrival of Europeans, numbered between 500,000 and 600,000. And as the indigenous would roam across the land, summer in the mountains, winter by the sea, it's a tough life, I tell you, eating different foods, they would do what they call caring for country. So in autumn, mid to late autumn, they would be meandering off to their winter retreats by the sea, and they would set fire to the environment. Now, the fires set during autumn, winter or early spring are what we call cold fires. Because of the high humidity and the high moisture content of the ground, the fires smouldered or burnt very low and slow, allowing wildlife, insects and birds to leave. It never got up the trunks and crowned into the canopies. Thus, you cleared a lot of that fuel underneath the forests. It also allowed new grasses to grow, while at the same time clearing space for new trees and bushes to germinate. I've seen the lovely merino sheep here, very super fine wool, 13 to 14 microns, great for the fashion industry. And our wool industry is doing a lot better now, as EU are always hunting super fine wool for the fashion industry. They're also hunting the mohair of our alpaca and our Angora goats, so we should see a few of those as well. We also have the Suffolk sheep. That's our new zoo. We like our new zoo. Very static. Now we also have Suffolk sheep, and their coarse wool is what we use in carpets and insulation. No longer do we use it to make scratchy jumpers like your grandma used to make. So we do have a variety of sheep, and we also have a variety of cattle. We have everything from Scottish Longhorn, Scottish Galloway cattle, Angus and Hereford, Asian water buffalo, as well as our Guernseys, Jerseys, a variety of milking cows, all for specific purposes to produce milk byproducts or milk, and certain types of meat. Asian water buffalo produces the leanest meat of any bovine, least fattiest and most healthiest, as well as great fat-free mozzarella cheese. So if you're into mozzarella but don't want the fat content for your cholesterol, then water buffalo mozzarella is for you. So again, we have a variety of cheeses here in Tassie. Now also we grow fallow deer. We have a lot of fallow deer here, which we export. Unfortunately, some of those escaped in the early days, so we now have 80,000 wild fallow deer in our forests. Fortunately, again, they're not doing too much damage, but you can get a hunting permit, and again, you're only allowed to hunt if you're going to eat it. You're not allowed to sell it, and you're not allowed to leave it there. You've got to take it with you, and it's for your consumption. We also have pheasants. When the early settlers arrived, they brought pheasants with them, and these are also in the wild, but we also farm a lot of different types of poultry, pheasants included for export to Great Britain. So quail for France, we have a lot of duck. We export Asian duck back to Asia and European duck back to Europe. We have, of course, the chickens, turkeys we export to America for their Thanksgiving and Christmas, or what we call the holiday seasons in America, I think. I will stand corrected. So we have those in the States, and so that's our poultry. So just in our agriculture, we do have a great variety of livestock that is here. We're going to see some Galloway cattle in a minute. They're the black cows with the white belt around the middle. Now, In our horticulture, that's a little bit different. As you can see, we've got fields here of vegetables being grown, salad vegetables or summer vegetables. We also grow a lot of broccolis, Brussels sprouts, peas and corn. So huge amounts, onions, garlics, etc. Just a subtle hint, if you're buying garlic, be careful where it comes from. Australia, that goes for onions as well, any root vegetable. If it is grown outside of Australia, Australia is the only country now using a carcinogenic insecticide on root vegetables, such as garlic and onions, to get rid of viruses and fungi off these vegetables. So if you're buying garlic, for instance, from Argentina or from China, it will be treated with that carcinogenic chemical. So make sure your greengrocer stocks Australian garlic, because it doesn't have any of those herbicides or pesticides placed on them. Galloways on the right there, those big cows. Now Galloways are fairly cheap to buy. Nobody wanted them originally, the cattle, because they were very heavy but very small when they were young, and they take a while to grow. But unlike Wagyu, which is a very marbly meat or a fatty meat, Galloways, taking an extra 6 to 12 months to get up to weight for food production, are worth more at the end than they are at the beginning. So they're actually producing a very lean meat and are now becoming more popular. He then obviously hadn't had enough and proceeded down to Port Arthur and opened fire in the cafe in the car park, killing 36 people, and then returned to Seascape, where he was captured. I will point out that as it is still a very sensitive thing down in this close-knit community, that you be a little bit tentative if you are curious and you want to ask questions. Some people lost family here. Actually started off to the left. Some people lost family or friends here that still work at Port Arthur. Some people lost an aunt or an uncle for the younger ones. This is a very small, close-knit community, and they have very vivid memories of the Port Arthur massacre. There is a memorial garden which I will show you, which will give you a little bit of information, but if you need any other information, just be very careful how you phrase your questions and of who you ask, because some people just break into tears still, and we don't want to upset anybody. On the left we have a Tudor motel, which is interesting considering that's 200 years before we even landed in Tasmania. Pretty cool. Henry VIII would be really stoked. On the left, the original sawmill, now up for sale for 3 years. He's never going to get rid of it, the price he's asking. Keep telling him, $2.50 is too much. On the left is the caravan park, so we have a variety of accommodation for people who like to stay down here and do the ghost tours. Port Arthur is the most haunted facility in Australia. Now, I was telling you about the prison within a prison. It is absolutely horrible. If you'd committed a crime or needed punishment, you were going to solitary, you could be held in there for 2 to 3 years. And in that 2 to 3 years, every time you were released from your cell, you had a black sackcloth placed over your head so no one could see your face. You weren't allowed to speak unless spoken to, and only answer a direct question with a direct answer. You went to church for 1 hour on a Sunday and were isolated. You went and had 1 hour's exercise. You were never referred to by name, but rather by number. It did send a lot of people a little bit Fruit Loopy, and that is why the asylum is next door. Left hand side we've got Stewart's Bay Eco Lodge, built in amongst the trees. Now, of course, as free settlers working at Port Arthur, such as the officers or the troopers, administration, you would have been buried on the Island of the Dead. If you were a free settler, you would have been buried here, because you would have been on the farming community outside.